Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Today's guest is a world-renowned performance psychologist and author of 16 books, including the national bestseller, The Power of Full Engagement. Dr. Jim Loehr's groundbreaking science-based energy management training system has achieved worldwide recognition and has been featured everywhere from Harvard Business Review to the Today Show to the Oprah Winfrey Show. Jim has worked with hundreds of world-class performers, including top athletes, Fortune 500 executives, and Army Special Forces. His clients have included golfers Michelle Wie and Justin Rose, tennis players Jim Courier and Monica Seles, hockey player Mike Richter, and Olympic gold medal speed skater Dan Jansen, as well as corporate clients like Procter & Gamble, Estee Lauder, PepsiCo, and the FBI. He is the co-founder of the Johnson & Johnson Human Performance Institute, a science-based energy management training solution that helps people expand their energy capacity for improved performance and resilience. On today's episode, Jim shares how to find fulfillment at work, ways to maximize energy for peak performance, and how to rewire our mental script. Please help me welcome today's guest, a special friend, Dr. Jim Loehr. So Jim Loehr, it is awesome to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I am always have been a big fan of Jim's, and I've gotten to know you so well over the last couple years, really, and it's just been an honor and a pleasure. So thanks for jumping on.
Well, it's a real privilege. I've really come to know you as well and have great respect for all that you've done and all that you're doing, and I think you've got some extraordinary concepts that I think are really, really helpful to people, and I'm very excited about participating in anything that you are launching. So it's my privilege.
Well, you're kind. You're kind. So, you've worked with some of the best athletes in the world, some world-class performers, really in every field. Tell me maybe a story, if you would, about how you've maybe made an athlete create a shift in their lives when maybe they've been struggling at whatever it is that they do, and you've helped them make a shift to become a better performer. How you did that?
Well, I have lots and lots of stories. Maybe the one that, for me was the most exciting and I think demonstrates a lot of how the training, I think, the mind and body and spirit work was in the Dan Jansen story. Dan Jansen, referred to as the Heartbreak Kid, because on the very day of his 500-meter race in Calgary, he learned that his sister Jane, who was one of the closest people in his entire life, had passed away from cancer. And he tried to figure out what would his sister want him to do, and he was really kind of undecided. And then finally, after talking to his family, decided to go ahead and try to skate and win the race for her. He thought that might be what she wanted for him to do. So he went out and just a short distance into the race, he falls, and he never falls. I mean, unbelievable. He's in tears, and so he feels like he failed her again. Then 4 days later, he tried to dedicate the 1,000-meter, and he was almost flawless, and just toward the end, he fell again. And that had started the tale of tragedy for Dan Jansen. And so he went to Albertville, and again, he broke a lot of world records. And at the Olympics in Albertville, he again failed, came in 26th in the 1,000-meter. And then I started working with him just shortly before that. We had just met, and I put him into training. I have every one of his training logs for 2 consecutive years, and extraordinary human being, a person of unbelievable character, and one of the issues was, that he was afraid he was going to fall. And I asked him before Loehr, what did he really want to have happen before he left the world of skating? And he said, I'd like to win an Olympic medal of some kind. And I would like to break the 36-second barrier in the 500 meter, which he said everyone says is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So at the top of his training log, he wrote 35.99, and I asked him if he would to. He really believed he could never do anything in the 1,000 meter because his mindset was that he really couldn't do much. He wasn't a kind of a slow twitch muscle fiber guy. He was speed, and he loved speed, and he always fatigued in the 1,000 meter. So I had him write on the top of his training log, I love the 1,000. And all of his training logs. He said, why would I do that? That's a lie. And I said, because you're going to retrain your mind to embrace the 1,000, because I really believe you can be as great or greater in the 1,000 as you have been in the 500. And at Lillehammer, he slipped and missed the medal. But in the same event that 2 years earlier, he'd come in 26th in the world. He broke an Olympic record, won an Olympic gold medal, and changed, history. And before that, 4 times before the Olympics, he broke the 36-second barrier. Once he broke it at 35.76, which is so far beyond
right.
what anyone ever dreamed could happen. So he trained, he believed, he changed the way he was thinking, his mindset, and it changed his entire future. And it was very exciting to see it, and we've had lots of examples like that where the mind, needs to be trained exactly like the body does, and it responds, and you just have to do the work. Just like the body doesn't come around quickly, you don't learn the skills in skating quickly. You don't learn the mental skills that really comprise what you might refer to as a great competitive mind. And he's very warm. He's very sensitive. He's a great person, but he also can become extremely tough-minded and mentally tough when he needs to be, when all the world was against him. So
that's an unbelievable story. Well, and there's so many parallels, I think, between business and sports. What do you think are some of the biggest parallels, right? Some of the biggest parallels that people can take away and deploy in their work life?
Well, we began to do a comparison between, the demands that are placed on athletes and the demands that are placed on, people at work and surgeons and, people in all different walks of life. And the one thing about sport is it's a game. No one dies. It's
right.
Not a big deal if you don't win the national championship in college, or if Dan had not won an Olympic gold medal, it wasn't the end of his life. He wasn't going to get fired or anything like that. But the real world, what we've learned with sport is just a proving ground. It's a living laboratory for distilling how the mind and body work. And it's so great because it's all run by the numbers. You can't fake it. You either won the championship, you broke the record, whatever you're doing, it's got a clear scorecard. And so if it works in the arena of performance in sport, which has a physical, emotional, mental, and even spiritual component, we know for sure it's going to have the same application in the world of business. It's just that business has never really thought of themselves as athletes. So we developed the notion of a corporate athlete, not that we're training them to become competitors in sport, but we're trying to train them to understand physical fitness, nutrition, how hydration, issues of emotional intelligence, and learning how to summon certain emotions and how to keep certain emotions from flooding into their cognitive processing system that really make it challenging to make really good, solid decisions. Learning how to focus, learning how to, really be clear about what you want, to understand what your purpose is in life, just like why are you competing? What is this all about? What's the big picture? All of those issues are as relevant to executives as they are to professional athletes.
Sure.
And so we build a whole program around, in precisely the same way we train world-class athletes, we train executives. And it's had a profound effect. We've had over 250,000 people go through the Institute with that kind of focus. And the feedback we get, we measure them for many months, 18 months after they've been here. And it's quite exciting when you see the changes, the same kinds of changes that we saw in athletes.
Well, and Jim, we connected when I had the chance to go to HPI a couple of years ago, and
right.
It was 2.5 days that changed my life in an awesome way, and it is without a doubt, I think, one of the most incredible programs on the planet for business executives as it relates to just performance and unleashing your potential, really mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and kind of this overall energy management component as well. But you at HPI have also created a new program for executives, right? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, we do a lot of coaching here, and we have been, very observant of the kind of coaching that exists out there, the forms of executive coaching, and what kind of coaching really gets the most results, the best results. And we really felt like there was an opportunity to kind of change the game a little bit with executive coaching. We put together a program that lasts 9 months, and it has the integration of the Mayo Clinic for 2.5 days. It does a very, very comprehensive, really interesting physical assessment. We have all kinds of psychological assessments. We have, all kinds of personal one-on-ones, and then we have a good deal of work over the phone. They have training logs exactly like we do with athletes, and we're coaching them. Most of these are very high-ranking C-suite executives, CEOs, and so forth. And they want their game to be as tuned up and as extraordinary as possible. And all the lessons that we learn, because so many of the athletes, Dan Jansen, we trained for 2 years.
Right.
And it's very hard to get the kind of results we want in 2.5 days unless we have coaching that follows it. And so we've launched this program. We have many, many executives now who are in 9 months of training.
Wow.
And it is really quite amazing to see, they have training logs and they make daily entries exactly in the same way. We track their diet, nutrition. We have a whole variety of scorecards that we're measuring based on what they want and the kinds of areas that have surfaced in the testing. And, it's exhilarating to see the kind of technology that we could employ, learn from decades of work with professional athletes, and it applies, even more importantly to executives.
Sure.
It's called a premier, executive program. And so it's very exciting for us to launch that program.
I love it. It sounds incredible. I just know that the 2.5 days I spent was absolutely magical. To imagine a 9-month program. It sounds like it's on steroids, right? As it relates to the version of what I experienced with lots of new bells and whistles. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's a hybrid, and it's our response to what we saw in the marketplace that, we just don't really have that kind of an understanding of how human beings change. And we're trying to fill that void. And there are lots of executive coaches out there, but I don't think they're putting all the effort into rallying the whole person.
Right.
Putting a very serious training regimen together that has been proven and tested for more than 2 decades.
God, wow. Well, and I know, Jim, one of the things that you and I talk about a lot, even offline, is just that we live in a world where we spend a lot of time managing our time, right? And one of the things I know you so strongly believe is that we need to make sure we maximize our energy and we manage our energy effectively. What are some tools and tactics that you often advise people with regards to energy management specifically? How can they do that better?
Well, one of the things that struck me in my work with athletes, and it has translated into almost every arena that we've been involved in, that the world is obsessed with time. There are millions of time management books, everything. We keep track of it like it was the most important scorecard that we'll ever keep in life.
Sure.
And in sport, you can watch people practicing. They can show up on time. They can leave after 4 hours of practice. But when you look at what they did with the time they had, there wasn't much of a return. They weren't there. They really didn't have the investment of what I believe is the single most important resource that we have as human beings in the time we have, and that's our energy. Energy is life, and energy brings life to time. And time without energy is, it's pretty much nothing. So if you have a lot of time and you have no energy, there's not much you're going to do with that time. Mm-hmm. And so we try to help people understand that it's not how long you live, but the energy you bring aligned with what matters most to you in the time that you do have. And that is really the essence of what life is all about. And we become so obsessed by keeping our calendars, showing up on time, being on the conference call. But there's no guarantee whatsoever that you, simply by being a good soldier and showing up on time, that you're going to invest what really makes everything happen in life. And that's not, as Einstein says, nothing moves until energy causes it to move.
Right.
And so if you want to move those neurons in your brain, if you want to have something happen that's actually going to be significant, you're going to have to rally energy. So that took us, I've written, several books about the whole notion of engagement, the powerful engagement, which is really the acquired ability to invest your full energy right here, right now, in what you're doing in the moment. And that's a very tough thing, but full engagement is the gift, the supreme gift we give to the world. And the more engaged we are, the more we get a life, the more we realize that it is our energy that we're fighting for. That's why we put so much emphasis in our program on the things that produce energy, on diet, nutrition, fitness, oxygen transport, sleep, and all those help to build a reservoir of energy from which we can make great investments, and those investments will either make or break our life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think we do. We live in a world that everything is so time compressed, and being fully present is so hard today. But when we're present, we connect with people. We don't just communicate with them, right? We're really there. So that's cool. What role does purpose, Jim, play in all of this, in your mind?
Well, it's really interesting how we evolved. With all the people that we've had here, we began to realize that the most important dynamic in a person's life, if they're going to make a change, is why make the change? What's driving the change? And if you wake up in the morning and you don't have a purpose, life it's really it's a nightmare, because you don't know what to do. And we're all navigating in business and in life, and the two coordinates you need to have. Number one, you need to know where you're going. Call that home base. And you need to know where you are now. And then you can rally the energy to try to make that distance shorter. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what your purpose is, if you don't know why you are mobilizing all this activity and energy and effort, you won't sustain it for very long. And so we've learned that people who have a real deep sense of purpose are much more likely to complete whatever mission they are on. And the more the purpose, it has a connection to something much bigger than themselves. They're really concerned more about the welfare of others than about themselves. They tend to fight much harder, and they tend to do much better. So we try to help people understand, even in sport, that so often repurposing what you're doing, not just for your own welfare, but for the welfare of so many people that you can help in becoming a superstar, in the money that you make, isn't so much about you. It's about this opportunity you have to make a difference in the world. And the more that they connect with that in sport and in life, in business, the healthier, the greater their sense of well-being, and they have more passion in their life. That's where passion comes from.
Sure.
It comes from a deep sense of purpose, which connects to your beliefs and your values. So purpose is the centerpiece of everyone's life story. And if you don't know what that purpose is, your life is pretty much meaningless. You're going to wander around and never, is this all there is, kind of.
Yeah, you'll feel sort of aimless, right? I mean, and maybe even a little empty inside. So how would you tell somebody if they, if they're listening, like, how would you tell them if they know that they're living out their purpose? How would someone know that?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to spend the time reflecting on, life as it's been presented to you, what really matters to you, what are your values. Sometimes you have to go to the end of your life. You have to kind of go and think about what is the legacy that you'd like to leave when you're gone, if at all possible. What are you going to leave in your wake that would actually make you feel like your life was worthwhile? So you may even, try to come to terms with what your eulogy would be, or what would you like on your tombstone. You really can't contemplate what the purpose of your life is until you realize you're only here for a short time, and what is the impact you'd like to have. So once you start digging into that space and you start trying to understand what is the meaning of life for you, what is the legacy you want to leave behind, what really is the thing that must happen for you in your own way of thinking to qualify as having the right to have a life, to be successful, to carve some kind of significance out of whatever time you have. And in that work, something starts to happen. You start to realize that deep inside you, there is a force field that starts to emerge that centers around this notion of a grand purpose, or we call it an ultimate mission in life. And we latch onto that and build as many connectors to that as we can. And that is really the hub of everything that happens in your life. It should be. And the more you align your energy and what you do in life with that core purpose, the more you feel like your life has meaning and significance. Mm-hmm. And so it really is a matter of trying to do the reflective work. It's really spiritual work that will help you understand, come to terms with the meaning of life and why are you here. And then from that, you begin to build a good sense of what I should be doing with my life, with my energy now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had the pleasure of going through that whole process. And now my personal mission statement is on my desk. I read it every single morning. And all my decisions are filtered through that mission statement that I created.
That's the way it should be. That's what we hope will happen with graduates.
Yeah, well, so, one of the things is you've worked with, obviously, some unbelievable athletes, and you really try to get them more mentally tough. I mean, at the end of the day, so that they can be performers at the work that they do. How do you do that? I mean, in addition to sort of the Dan Jansen story, is there another story like that or an experience? I mean, you've done that with some of the best tennis players in the world over time.
Well, I guess the big understanding that's important here is, even though it's called toughness, it's really a misnomer. We're not broken into, discrete pieces of real estate. I mean, we have a mental side, we have an emotional side, we have a spiritual side, we have a lot of values, all kinds of things that are part of this unique mosaic of what it means to be human. And what we've learned is that mental toughness is the result of strength in all dimensions. It's the result of character strength. It's the result of physical strength. It's the result of emotional strength and mental strength. Being able to focus, being able to keep negative emotions in check, the ability to visualize, the ability to establish a sense of purpose and a reason for why it's important to do this and why you're not going to surrender. That's more of a spiritual dimension. And to eat right and to sleep right, all of these contribute. You can fall apart for any number of reasons, and you may be inclined to think it's because you don't have mental toughness. But we believe that, this notion of being able to perform well is actually the result of entering a very special, what I call an ideal performance state. And that is the result of a number of factors, multidimensional.
Okay.
We are a multidimensional group of strengths and weaknesses, and we have to address those. And so in our training, we deal with all of those dimensions. Most psychologists or most mental toughness specialists deal with one dimension. And I think it's really unfortunate because we are not one-dimensional creatures.
For sure, right. So, one of the things that you and I have talked about, right, is that a lot of people assume that achievement will bring happiness and fulfillment. And you say and have said that it's not really about what you achieve, but it's really about who you become as a consequence of the chase that really matters. How do you help people see that?
Well, it's interesting. a good bit of research in this space. I know we're very much research, based, follow the most responsible literature and evidence-based practices we can. And when people come here in almost every arena of high performance, everyone's chasing something. Some may be chasing fame, money. They're chasing,
a promotion,
celebrity, all kinds of things that corner office, status, prestige. Something is driving them. And what we learned is that what you chase is important, why you chase is important, but the most important dimension is who you become as a consequence of that chase. Are you a better person? Are you happier, healthier? Are you, every single thing we do, there's an adaptation consequence. And for a lot of people, they chase and don't realize they're becoming less confident or more self-centered or more jaded or more unhappy, all kinds of issues. And it's because they're kind of out of alignment with what they really feel they should be doing deep inside.
Mm-hmm.
So we're constantly mining that territory, trying to help them understand that because of this drive, this passion, this chasing that you're doing, chasing this, here's kind of what you're giving up inside yourself. Here's the real estate you're losing. And is there a way to chase the right thing, and actually repurpose all that chasing to help you become more of what we might refer to as your best self, the person you're most proud of? And when you get it all aligned properly, it's quite exhilarating. It still gives me hair. It makes the hair on my neck stand up, because when you see a person get it, we've done it with kids here. We have a tennis academy. And when these kids start recognizing they can repurpose all the frustrations, injuries, losses, you kind of, rather than become more defeated and more more feeling like a victim, they can repurpose all those to build more resiliency, to build more confidence and belief in themselves by pushing harder, by investing their energy more precisely, by improving their rituals, by improving the things that they know will contribute to doing the things they can control over, and then suddenly they have big breakthroughs. So we're becoming something every day because of what we're going after. We were born to chase.
Sure.
We love to chase.
Sure.
And we just need to know what we're chasing, why we're chasing it, and then we need to know who the heck we're becoming as a consequence of the chase.
Well, and I would imagine, over the years working with athletes, you've done an amazing job of helping them get clear on that, so that they recognize that and they stay focused on that throughout that whole journey. I always used to say as an agent that athletes sort of die twice, right? They when they stop competing, it is always such a difficult moment for athletes.
Yep.
And it's always frightened me. I wish so badly I could have had more of those kinds of conversations with my guys as an agent, just about what does it look like when we're done?
Absolutely.
And are we ready for that? And are we preparing for that?
Yep.
So Jim, one last question. You and I have talked a lot about the challenges in youth sports today with kids. What are things that you believe parents and teachers and coaches can do to help kids build character as a result of sport?
Well, I think we have to go back to why do parents get involved? Why do they get their kids involved in sport in the first place? You have to kind of get the purpose right. And most parents, not all, but most, majority of parents are not thinking that their kids are going to be professional athletes or become wealthy because of competitive athletics. Most of the time they get them involved because they want them to be happy and be more well-rounded. They want them, the two biggest things they want for their kids is they want them to be happy and they want them to be a good person. And anything that gets in the way of either one of those two is probably something that should not necessarily be in their lives without some adjustment. And parents get lost. They get very lost. And they really understand that the reason that kids are in sport is to help them grow up, become healthier, stronger, better human beings. So this is a testing ground for actually learning lessons that will apply for the rest of their life, as opposed to thinking of them as athletes first. We need to think of them as human beings first, persons first,
Sure.
and athletes second. It doesn't really matter what they do in sport as long as they get stronger and better and more character-driven, more respectful of others, more focused, more disciplined, more honest, a sense of gratefulness, and all the dimensions that we talk about in the character space. And sport can be a magnificent. John Wooden and countless others have used sport to build extraordinary human beings. And winning comes as a consequence of that. That is not why we're in sport,
Right.
to win.
Right.
The professionalization of youth sports is a complete, tragedy. And so this happens when parents and coaches really are misguided in their belief that if they do well in sport, it's going to open the door to success in everything else they do in life. And that simply is not true. The data just doesn't support that. So it's like what we want to do is make sure that our kids, as they move through sport, are becoming stronger, better, more fully functional human beings that are better prepared to handle the forces of life, because virtually none of them are ever going to make a career in professional sport. So let's use sport for something that's going to help them throughout their life, as opposed to something that's going to be a burden, and actually help them develop shortcuts or skills that may compromise their ability to live a life of really, really high ethical, moral character. And so it's, for me, that's the most important dimension of athletics that I'm involved in and have been for almost a decade now.
Yeah. Well, it's such an important component. Oh my gosh. I mean, as the mother of 3 daughters, I can tell you, it is central to the development of our girls. So, Jim, I always end with a rapid fire series of questions, and you're so obviously clear with yourself in such magical ways. So you're going to be able to just rip these off. I'm sure you're going to just rock it. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, are you a morning person or a night person?
Oh, I'm morning. 3:30 in the morning every morning. For the last 90 days, I've been writing a book, and I'm exhausted.
You wake up at 3:30 in the morning?
I'm up at 3:30. I write from 3:30 to 8:30, and I have not missed a single day for 102 days.
Oh, my Lord. Well, so are you? I know this place where they teach you how to manage your energy and stuff. Are you managing
so I have to get to bed pretty early.
I bet. All right. So who is a mentor of yours?
Oh, people that I have followed in their careers. Philip Zimbardo, the psychologist, the work that's been done in Deci and Ryan in the self-determination theory, that I love the kind of line of thinking. They've done remarkable work, got remarkable support for their work, and it was really tough to do. I love when people kind of cut through and take different paths and
Sure.
show a lot of courage. But, I also, my own father was a great, he really taught me to really value the whole issue of integrity. I still model him and his brilliance in that dimension of character. Viktor Frankl and his brilliant
Sure.
work with Man's Search for Meaning. People that I have admired for years, and then I have people that kind of come into my space, and I am absolutely amazed that Arthur Ashe was a close friend, and to this day, I deeply admire and respect. He's kind of a personal hero for what he was able to do and the class that he was able to represent in his lifetime. I will never, ever forget the contributions he made to so many and to my life. Wow.
Tell me this, because I think just given this energy management space, what is your morning routine and your night routine?
Well, my morning routine is I have a journal, and I do a journal entry, and I have a series of exercises that I do every morning. Some of them are meditation, and I launch my day with that, and I record it, the time and the length of time. And I really recommend that. It's like the most extraordinary, it's for me, it's tuning up my guidance system, which also includes reading my what I call my personal credo. And but I like to work. I read. I read lots of. I have stacks and stacks of books, and I'm always trying to put ideas together and interesting thoughts. And so that's my best working time, creative time, and writing time. It depends if I'm traveling. It depends. I'm here in Orlando at the Institute. But so often I have obligations here that require that I be here at a certain time to do programs and stuff. And so, but I try in that early morning time. That's my most precious time. I want to be fully alert. That's when my brain just goes wild in the morning. And at night, I just have a wind down routine where I do some reading that's not really too invigorating. I may watch the news and a couple of programs that I really quite enjoy, and that kind of winds me down. And right now, I'm usually in bed by 9 o'clock, maybe 8:30 in the evening. So I have a meal fairly early in the evening, if at all possible, or I just have a very light snack and go to bed.
God, that's great. Yeah. And what would be one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
There are a lot of things. I didn't understand energy management. I didn't understand the whole multidimensional model. I had to go through lots of tough learning, sometimes failures, to try to get it right. I feel like we have to always be on a steep learning curve. And it's unfortunate that it's about the time we think we're getting wired up, we realize we're not even in the front door yet. There's so much to learn.
Sure.
And everyone has a piece of the puzzle, but at 20 years ago, I feel like I was really not privileged to have all the information that we now have, because we have all this. I love data, big data sets, trend lines. We've learned a lot more, and things that I thought were true 20 years ago aren't even close to being true today.
Wow.
And I'm sure that what I now know, and I think if I were to live another 20 years, I'm sure maybe 50% of those would be proven to be partially true or not true either. So I think the most important takeaway for me is I just have to continue to learn and take whatever you have and do the best, but be open to the fact that whatever you think is, the truth probably is going to change. So don't get too full of yourself.
Yeah. Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
It's going to change, and be okay with the change. Invite it.
Hey, Jim, you are the best, and I get to see you next week. I can't wait.
Yes, we're going to have some fun.
I know. Thanks for coming on. You're the best. Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.